Hello, humans. What the woo, huh? Yeah, we've got heavy weather coming at us, right? Very heavy, stormy period coming. And we're at I don't know, it's not possible for me to predict the energy levels coming in, but right at the moment we're in a recent spike, a recent uptick in these things. So our Schumann resonances are all wonky and coming on us and so on. So, but it's not possible for us to predict in near real time or anything other than a general trend that, yeah, you know, the energies are up. We're feeling them now, though. So there's a lot of woo about humans. Humans are interesting critters, and we don't think of ourselves in the appropriate way because when we're born, we're thrown into the paradigm and not the woo. If we were thrown into the woo, we would have a more general understanding of what we are, who we are, and what we are. But so humans have, we got our brain. Let me see how I'm going to draw this most effectively. And this could be difficult. Okay, so we'll just assume that we're talking about a human, and we're just going to talk about the torso. So there's this book, Ming Ching. Ming Ching. It's also spelled H-U-I. Depends on some variants. Okay, you can find it on Amazon. It's a little tiny book. It has only 2 pages in it. Okay, and it's one of these extremely valuable books, but you'll never ever understand the 2 pages. Most people shouldn't buy it. Eva Wong made a very good translation of all the commentaries around it, right? And the Ming Ching is a book about these 2 pages. These are the reputedly some of the oldest. It's hard to assign a date, and I hate getting into that, and I'll get into something else in a minute here. But the Ming Ching is reputedly the oldest book written in Chinese, and it was originally written on a tortoise shell. Okay, but it's a very interesting book, and it describes much of the understanding of the human body in symbology, not in words. There are Chinese ideographs, but it's mainly pictographs, right? But the symbology is very accurate relative to the understanding that I got about the vagus nervous system from talking with this guy in hyperspace. Okay, so I find it very interesting that we have this book. It's ancient and so on. They thought enough of this information to scratch it on the inside of a tortoise shell, or outside of a tortoise shell. Anyway, the Ming Ching is this pictograph description of and it's called the cultivation of internal energy, or it's the cultivation of the life force, or something like that in an English title. If you're hunting for it. I read it so many years ago, I can't remember what the English title is. Anyway, Eva Wong was the translation she wrote the translation that I most recently read. I've read several, and basically they're translating the commentary. So, anyway, this is our human being. And we have up in here, we have our brain mass. All right. Now, this brain mass is connected through the spinal column to the torso, and the nerves go down that spinal column. But the most significant nerves are not shielded by the spinal column. They are not within your spinal column. So there's this interesting thing. So I'm going to have to draw this in profile on this in another form here, right? So let me see if I can do this in a meaningful fashion and not get too... This up here is the brain, right? Here's our neck again. And I'm just drawing this in the square form, just because it's easier. Just easier for illustration. Okay, so our spinal column carries down nerves from within our cranium. This is the shielded area. It's doubly shielded because we have bone, very dense bone. I've been walked really hard and it should have cracked me and it didn't, but very dense bone. And you have the fat layer, right? My lean layer. That's the fats, this hardened kind of fat that's put around all of your nerves. This is what separates our vagus nervous system from the vagus nervous system of almost all the other vertebrates, except for what we perceive of as the thinking or smart vertebrates. Dogs and cats and horses, all the quadrupeds, you know, there are other animals that in the ocean and so on that have complex vagus nervous systems that are also shielded by this particular kind of this clumpy fat that has itself multiple layers, and it's put in a particular way to actually act as an energy shield. Okay, it's designed that way. And so you've got these nerves up here, and we've got the 9th nerve and the 10th nerve. These are the two key ones. These two nerves are shielded inside the cranium. They're shielded in here, and they come on down and reconnect here, but they are outside of and connect to the vagus nervous system. The vagus nervous system spreads out over the whole body, and it connects the lungs, heart, spleen, liver, and the intestines, and the reproductive organs are all connected to the vagus nervous system. It does not connect to the adrenal gland, to the adrenal system, okay? It does not involve itself in those hormones. It's not infiltrated into it connects to the pancreas too. Very, very key. It also, by the way, the vagus nervous system connects to all of the glands in the head. Okay, so all of the lymph nodes and everything that you find swelling up and all these kind of things are near all of these glands. Pituitary gland, pineal gland, blah, 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 blah. All of these guys are all interconnected to our vagus nervous system. Vagus nervous system ties into all of these. The 10th cranial nerve is the one that is the aspect of it that is key at this moment is not one that I've ever found to be studied, okay? And that is that the X nerve, and they call it that in the esoteric traditions where they examine all of these things. The X nerve is the nerve that connects us to time and gives you a sense of time. It connects you to your body clock and all of that. The body clock is connected into the vagus nervous system. So the vagus nervous system is external to the spinal column and your vertebra, right? Which is the main shielding for your nerves. But those are the nerves that basically do the lowest level of functionality for keeping the meat sack together and trucking around. The vagus nervous system does basically everything else. And it is exposed in the viscera and everything else. It's hidden behind the ribs, you know, and that sort of thing, but there's no real shielding per se. Its only shielding is this fat layer. And this is a key element of why we are at where we are at. And so this is the way that the human being is basically structured, all right? A pretty ugly human being here, but some really interesting things about it. The brain, even though it's shielded by the cranium, the brain is susceptible to radiation, right? And you can prove this to yourself really easily. Go to a car park or go to a Walmart next time you're shopping or whatever, and take your little key fob for your car, and you walk away and you click it. You keep clicking it until it stops working, right? You're too far away for the little tiny weak radio signal to get out there and turn the lights on and go beep at you when you lock it or unlock it. It just simply doesn't work. You're just too far away. Walk another 15, 20 feet. Put that key up on your head and push it. Your car will light up because you're amplifying that signal through your brain, because your brain is this emulsified oil mass with microcrystals through it. The microcrystalline structure is what we think of as neurons, what the doofus academics think of as the actual points at which you think. It doesn't happen that way. Those are the connections to your consciousness that where the thinking comes into the meat sack. Anyway, so you can prove to yourself that your brain is this antenna. You can prove to yourself with your little key fob there. And this works with any kind of electrical signal, but you don't want to be putting all kinds of electrical things on your brain and broadcasting out big chunks of signal, right? It's not going to do your brain and the rest of you any good. But it proves to you that you are susceptible to all kinds of radiations, including little radiations from your little key fob, and that they get through the cranium, and that they get through those fat layers. Now, you don't react to the key fob level of stuff, right? Because it gets through the cranium, but it doesn't get through the fat layer. It just sort of probably is not even as isolated enough to reach to irritating the fat layer on the nerves. But here's the thing. There's a lot of other radiation that's a lot more stronger that does do that. And if one is, now here's something else. I don't know how serious of a test it would be, because there would be a lot of variation in key strength out of the little fobs and this kind of thing. But if you actually find yourself in a reacting to the key fob, then it very likely means that your fat layer is extremely low. So if you're reacting to the energy if you can feel it, sense it in some manner, then you better start chugging down some real fats and not seed oils. And that's part of the issue here, is that our nerves, so all of the reptiles, all of these kind of guys, chickens, any bird, most fishes, they have unshielded nervous systems. That's why they'll be flying through the air and just drop dead, not the fishes, but the birds, and drop dead and hit the ground. It's because their nervous system got fried by some form of radiation up there. You could have birds drop down from, running into poisonous gas and this kind of thing. But most recently, what we've seen were all the flocks falling here and there and so forth were all electromagnetically induced. Our nerves should have this lumpy fat layer all around it on all sides of the thing. And if you don't, if you use seed oils, your body can't build this up, okay? It can't build it up over the nerve itself. And what you end up getting in sensation is you get people that are they're always irritable, and they're jumpy, they're jagged all the time. It's like they've got a low-level withdrawal, right? Like they're smokers or something, and they've just got a low-level withdrawal constantly. And you'll find these people are sugar addicted, caffeine addicted, all different kinds of things, trying to balance out their alcohol, drugs, and so on, trying to balance out the nervous sensation that's going through their body. And it truly is an excitation in the nerves that are not as well protected as they should be, and they end up getting sympathetic or parasympathetic vibrations intruding into the body through radiation. And so you can actually make yourself a chemical or electromagnetically sensitive person by being a vegan if your body will support your being a vegan long enough. You will become chemically and magnetically sensitive, because you won't have fats on your nerves. You're going to end up with the seed oils, they'll be stripped away. Or not stripped away, but unable to be rebuilt, because they have to be rebuilt constantly, because they take the brunt of all this electromagnetic radiation that we're getting hammered by. So obviously, if one thought of 5G as being a radiative source for directing humans around via the vax and so forth, then vegan humans would be the first ones that would pop up and be robots. Curiously, we do notice that a lot of the left is pushing veganism, vegetarianism to the extreme, and a lot of their own people are adherents to it. And we see that they're very unhealthy and they're jaggedy and so on and so on. So, there might be a pattern there. Maybe the left and communism, the bug, wants humans to be vegetarians because then we won't be healthy and we'll get into these other problems. Some of the problems that we're getting now is that this extra energy that we're getting from space is not only hitting our brain, but it's coming on down and it's affecting our vagus nervous system here. This is key, all right? So you can have the energy affect your brain, and any energy, any kind of radiation can affect your brain. And I know people that have worked around both ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, welders and nuclear kind of people, you know, people working in nuke plants and things. And the different kinds of radiation affect the brain differently, but they all affect the body the same way because the body is impacted through the vagus nervous system. The spine is as protected as the cranium, so it's going to respond as the brain does to radiation, unlike the body. So whatever the source of radiation is coming into the body, the vagus nervous system is going to pick it up sympathetically. If you have a complete fat layer around your entire nervous system and you're robust and so forth, you will have less impact on these things, right? And if you don't, then you're going to have a very high level of impact of the radiation coming on in, and you will find your thinking to be disturbed. The reason that this occurs is because the vagus nervous system is in charge of all the hormone production and movement and all of that kind of stuff throughout the body. And so it responds to the hormones for fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so even at subtle levels, those things being whipped around can cause cortisol production to go through the roof in your body, and you'll get stress reactions. And so people are coming up with stress reactions all the time. Now, our society is also coming up with stress reactions, so that we see that the vagus nervous system is inducing a situation where individuals are, you know, I just can't take it anymore. It's like I've had too much coffee, but I haven't had any, right? That sort of thing, right? And it's because they're getting all pressured by the emotional reaction of their depleted resources protecting their vagus nervous system. So the resources of their body get depleted. The minerals you need, iodine, magnesium, iron, and these other resources that you need, this iron, the lack, so we know that this is the part of the whole process, right? Because we have ordinary monthly, daily kind of activity. We have PMS. In PMS, women shed a lot of their nutrient base in the process, right? The process of menses takes its toll on women's bodies in the sense on a monthly basis that in a sense is a depletion for that period of time of very necessary resources in the form of these minerals, iodine, magnesium, iron, and so on. Iron especially. Iron provides us through ferritin, provides us with this particular component around our nerves within the fats. And so thus we find, and it also affects all of our hormone production. And so we have a dual kind of a thing going on with PMS. And that is that the hormones are whacked out a bit, and the sensitivity is raised way the fuck up because of the lack of pheromone. The women are not replacing the fat layers around all of the nerves at the rate that they do throughout the rest of the month. And in fact, after women, or when they go through their cycle and they get to this particular point, they have a bounce back effect where they actually build back more layers of these fat cells in anticipation of the next lunar cycle, right? And it coincides more or less to the route of the moon relative to the earth, relative to the woman, and so on. And so it's all interlinked that way, and we know that we're receiving energies from space, just local space, and so it shouldn't be too much of a shock that we're going to be reacting to these other energies that are also going to set up these sympathetic vibrations through our nervous system that in turn is going to produce hormones. And so it's ever so complex, guys. If you don't have adequate minerals, Just like in PMS, a woman gets depleted over time, she's going to get worse PMS and so on, right? So you got to keep up on this stuff just to be able to maintain and even strain, as the pilots say. So right now, if you get depleted and you're on a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet, you're getting hit by these energies from space, your body's reacting, your hormones are all out of whack, you don't know what's going on, your thinking is jangled. This all works in the bug's favor, okay? And it's not humans that are promoting a vegetarian diet per se. I stumbled into one because I couldn't eat meat because of the cancer, and the cancer was undiagnosed. I had to eat, so I just stumbled into a vegetarian diet for 35 fucking years. So I know what I'm talking about. I've experienced this. I had to work hard to protect myself from the degradation of a vegetarian diet. And I was successful, but it was a lot of work. Anyway, so now we all have to do an extra bit of work in keeping ourselves and our diets and our stuff and the rest of our body just like fit, right? Because we're coming into this period. We're in this period now where for the past few weeks, past months, all the way back to 2019 when I was really getting amped up about it, we've come into this area of raising energies, external energies affecting us, these strange energies. And so we find that our social order is reacting in aggregate to the same way that we are reacting in the individuation. So we react to these energies. We get angry when these energies trigger our hormones because we don't have enough fats around the nerves. Well, in a sense, that's also affecting our social order. And the bug is pumping it up. The communists are pumping up all of these emotions because they're power hungry, and they're psychopathic and sociopathic. And sociopaths and psychopaths are very good at weaponizing empathy and manipulating emotion and lying to produce their goal. That's their whole method, right? So communism is psychopathic at its core because it's all about power and manipulation. Anyway, so we're here now. We've got heavy weather coming. We're going to have more of these energies pouring in. It's actually probably going to affect our physical weather as we go forward. But we have to take those precautions that we can take both individually and socially. So not only is your body going to want to react violently to this if you're at an unhealthy level, but you, as an thinking individual, can count on that effect in other individuals, thinking or not. So all of the Antifa and the BLM kind of guys, they're going to just be, and the police, right? The police are on their side and so on. They've been weaponized. All of these people are just itching to cause violent reactions. Their bodies, they have bad diets. They are not healthy. They are not in a sound mind because they are in an unsound body. This is going to promote their individual reactions to the social goal that they've been instructed in within their role, which is to promote and extend violence and confrontation. So you can count on this. You can figure that this is baked in the cake for the next few months, maybe a year or more, depending on your locale. It just depends on what's going on. It will take us a longer period of time to, I don't know. Okay, so in the typical past that we have as an example, such things that we're involved in now would take years, like the Bolshevik Revolution took years, 12 years or something to conquer all of the Soviet Union. This kind of thing, our liberation, the obverse of that, of the Soviet Union, our liberation from the globalists, from the elitists, from the pedophile death cult that's been controlling us for the last 6,000 years, our release from them may become a very rapid and totally global process, rather than nation state to the next nation state to the next nation state and so on. It may, because of the internet, because of the social media, because of the interconnections of everybody, it may just erupt and be pretty much global all at once. It will still take a long time for the whole settling out process, but maybe we'll get to that big burst. And it may be happening directly because of these energies that are coming in from space and how they're affecting the people that are healthy, that do have good fats on their nerves and are prepared to get up and do things, so to speak, in response to what's going on. Our social order is reacting very much, and so when they say the body politic, that's how I see this, right? So I see politics as being a thing of the body that is not of the mind. Philosophy is of the mind, that kind of thing. Science, knowing, but not politics. Politics is a visceral thing. Politics is a entirely emotional, and then they attach certain ideas and so on, policies, etc. But it's entirely an emotional viewpoint and process. That's why we're in this political hell now, because of these energies from space that are intruding and all of the weird shit that the resonant ones, those who respond to the energies getting more amped up and vibrating faster, are going through. Now, see, in my way of thinking, this is an aspect of the way that our ultimate enemy, whom I call the bug, and that's the placeholder, but I think that this is part of the way that it works, that it's long-lived, and it works through resonance, and it works through getting our vagus nerve going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So in a weird, crude sense, you could say that, okay, the bug first came here, it found a human with a weak nervous system that it could manipulate, and then it made that weak human think that its condition, because that human may have had some kind of, say, biological condition, and it couldn't eat meat, develop fat right, like I did with the cancer, maybe that human is strobed by the bug and is made to think that his condition is a mark of excellence, right? So that's how the vegetarians perceive themselves. That's how the social justice warriors perceive themselves. That's how the purple hair people, that's how Antifa perceive themselves, as the knights of good. They think they are doing ultimate good for the planet, even though they know it's not good for you necessarily. It is good for the greater whole, and so your wishes are not, your desires and state and so on are not necessarily any concern for them. So they're very power hungry and very, well, they're basically mean fuckers. They're bullies, right? And so this could be done by the bug. This could have been done. That's the way it could have happened. I don't know. It would have been. The bug works and may even work in millions of years for all I know. These are very ancient beings. What we're having now is that the poor normies are getting hit by all of this radiation. A lot of them have been sold this, ultimately leading to eating insects diet. And a lot of them are going to be strobing to these energies and participate in the chaos that's coming. The good news is, and there's a lot of it, is that many of the normies are waking up and speaking up. And a lot of them are waking up because they're getting pummeled by the energies, but in their case, it's not making them sympathetic, it's making them irritated, and they are upset and they're speaking out and so on. So we are getting the pushback. So, and also all of the healthy people are now being energized by these strange energies from space. So in previous times, when the Earth was in realms of space that produced these kind of energies, we would find that there would be great wars between empires. And there was no real need for it at the time. Maybe there you could say argue climate change and a lot of that, but I think a lot of these giant wars and things, like that we'd seen in India, in ancient times and so forth, where lots of people were destroyed. I think that we had similar situations where there was amped up energies, and it just drove people crazy based on their diet and so on, to the point where they just couldn't handle it, and they reacted this way. We see this. There's Okay, so when we have a coincidence of poor diet and strange things erupting in social orders in previous ages that are also coincident with Earth going through some kind of a weather problem that indicated it was in at least a similar or not dissimilar realm of space, then I'm also tending to think that, okay, some of these things could be put down to us reacting in this way to that particular kind of energy because of the weakened state. So we find that there's a real interesting coincidence between the initiation of monotheism and in Egypt and the diet of the people at the time, and the fact if you go and look at the bones and remains of people from Egypt at the time that monotheism was established in Egypt, you find the Ra, the sun god worship, you find that they had an extraordinary die-off of people at a young age, and that their diet had included barley and some salts that had interesting components to the salts, and these people were dying of basically osteoporosis from like age 28 to 48. And so a lot of their people died of brittle bone disease at a very young age, and those that were, and they were dying younger of that than that also, of deformed, malformed bones and stuff. And this was at the time that there was this great movement to the Ra, the sun god. And so was the movement to monotheism a reaction to the people being basically poisoned by their diet over the course of these 2 generations? And it well could be just those sorts of things. So if we don't actually examine what's going on within our species and only limit ourselves to the current now and our current body, we miss some of these larger indicators that could inform us, oh, hey, maybe there's some shit to watch out for at the moment, right? Like keeping your minerals up because we got extra radiation coming in that's causing hormonal production. And even in men, especially in men, guys, you're going to pee it out, right? So, okay, so right now we're about to lose a cherished traditional part of my world, which is the British soccer hooligan. Okay, so in my life, I was a software engineer and a software programmer. I did a lot of coding for people like GEC Marconi, British Airlines, this sort of thing, right? A lot of British companies. And so they would hire me, I'd go and program for them. And I got to meet a lot of the Brits. They're just a very interesting group of people. And one group that I really kind of hung out with because we were of a similar mindset, they were always about 10 years or 12 years younger than me, but they were these soccer hooligans. And they wouldn't work after about 11 o'clock on Friday. So that was my only bitch, right? On Friday, we just didn't get shit done. But they were all right guys. But we're not going to have that anymore, okay? Because they're injecting all of the British children, and all of the male British children are going to become infertile and eunuch, and their hormonal production will be lost. They won't go through puberty or come out of it. Puberty lasts until you're 26 or 27, and they won't come out of it until or they won't come out of it as adult males. They'll come out of it as some other mutant something, but they won't be producing the hormones that you find that are peed out in the soccer matches, because the guys are drinking beer all day and they're standing there, they're crammed in there, they can't go anywhere, they pee where they're standing, the whole place reeks of urine, and it's the pheromones that get everybody all pissed up and they start they start fighting. Never go to a British soccer match. Never go to a soccer match with these Brits. It's just, it's a crazy fucking time. Anyway, so we're going to lose. I'm very sad that the Brits are being taken over by the bug, and they're going to inject their children. Everybody's got to protect the children because we're looking at genocide here. They're going to try and inject 70%. Fuck Joe Biden wants to get up in front of the UN and say that the UN needs to inject 70% of the humans with this Depop juice, right? This euthanasia juice. And they know that even if you don't die, you ain't gonna have any kids. So they're gonna whittle humans down to nothing. That's their goal. That's the bug's goal. And we're kind of at that point now where you got to fight. You know, you got to guard on all of this kind of stuff. They're clever. The communists are very clever. They've taken over the control of the judicial and the paradigm system, right? And so because they control the paradigm, they can make you believe that it's all, quote, legal and that it's actually happening in your interest, it's for health, all of this kind of shit. And none of that is true, of course. We're about to see all of this kind of shit break out with the eruption of some things in this month, I think on the 20th to 24th, something like that. Then we'll have a big bust out when I think we'll have the mainstream media break down. We'll have a casualty between now and the third week in October, or within that third week, based on how the language is running. And that's going to aid the good guys, the organic humans, in all of us fellows, in proceeding with this information war and bust open all of this kind of stuff. And then we'll be able to, hopefully, very rapidly, shut down all the vaccines, shut down big pharma, subsume the whole process, and start looking into it and cleaning it up, which will take years and years and years because we've been fucked over for a long time. But bear in mind that we've got some coincidence here, okay? So they're going to have these global protests on the 18th. That's also coinciding with this huge pump up in the Schumann resonance. So our energies are going to be all amped up, and so are the energies of the police. So you can expect, and the agent, let's just do it this way, the APs, right? The apps, agent provocateurs. These are the Antifa that'll be dressed up as Trump supporters, the BLM guys dressed up as Trump supporters, you know, that sort of thing here in the US. But you're going to have agent provocateurs, you're going to have all kinds of stuff, and you, if you go out to these things, will be affected. You'll be affected by all of these energies here. It'll affect your hormones. It'll all come on up and affect your thinking. The vagus nervous system, by the way, transports hormones from the stomach, from the liver, from the spleen, all over the place, and puts them up in your brain. So actually transporting them as a hormonic element, that is to say the chemical constituents, not an electrical thing, but it actually moves hormones throughout your body. So very powerful. And so this is the goal, by the way, of all of the mind control people, and this is what keeps us from being able to be 100% mind controlled. You can control an insect to the point it doesn't have any will anyway, but you could control an insect to do anything you want continuously, and it would have no option because you can do it chemically. Ants can be controlled with chemical trails to where they just sit there and spin and spin and spin until they die. With pheromones and stuff, right? You can do this to lizards, you can do this to any animal whose nervous system is unshielded by the fat layers. You can't do that to us. In order for the bug to control us, it's got to get into our heads, actually get there some way. Because it can't cause can't put out a waveform that our nerves through our body pick up like an antenna. And you got to think about that. The Hindus say that there are 7 chakras, okay? Chakras. But there's 72,000 nadi. All right? These, in my opinion, are more important. The 72,000 nadi are all of those little acupuncture points that are all over your body. A nadi is a nexus. It's a connection point between 2 or more nerves. So you got 72,000 of these points at which your nervous system antenna joins off on other nerves and then leads back to a main nerve. So you got 72,000 of these fuckers. And so you are a giant antenna in your body as well. And this part of the antenna, as opposed to that part of it, the emulsified oily bath of all of your neurons, this part of the antenna picks up and controls hormones. So anyway, so we're coming up to a time where there's going to be a lot of emotion. There's going to be emotion ginned up by stuff on the outside, by actions. People will have behavior that will trigger emotions. They will then trigger other people's behavior, and it will be amplified by the position that we're in now relative to all of the fuckery around the planet and the genocide, death shot injections and everybody's rejection of them, and the social order going to hell, and war and all of this kind of crap, right? All of that shit's going on. But specifically, we're getting up into a period right now where we're going to have this kind of thing occur in sync with these resonating waves that are within the Schumann resonance. And also, do not put it beyond the capability of ourselves as a species or some other species to manipulate the Schumann resonance waves as electromagnetic frequencies by inputting more ionizing radiation in particular points and so on. Like, think about HARP, that kind of thing, right? So this is a what the woo. So we're at a point where the whole place is frothing. All of the humans are all whipped up. They're getting even more whipped up. We've got scheduled confrontations. Let me see, is there anything else with this? No, I don't think so. It's difficult for me. I mean, really, you should go look up the vagus nervous system and look at all the pictures of it. Really cool looking, and how it interconnects through our bodies. So, all right. So now, at the what the woo level, all right. So we're seeing some information come out that there's 70 deaths a day in the U.S. Of vaccinated people, from the vax, basically, that wouldn't necessarily have died. We're now seeing, I actually know personally people that I've used to talk to that are now dead because they were stupid and they took the vax. And we're going to see lots and lots and lots of this go on as they still try and roll it out, the evil genocidists. I don't think that the events of the 18th, and there's going to be massive ones, are going to be particularly pivotal or telling for what's going to be coming up. And universe likes surprises. I'm of the opinion that there are going to be a confluence of events that will create surprises for all of us that are going to shift the balance of power here relatively rapidly over the course of September and October. And we'll get into November, and we'll be feeling around in a new world in a strange place where traditional power structures are weakened or removed or exposed. And that exposure will cause more weakening and removal as well. The tendency to suspect breakdown of the social order is natural. It's an expected response from continuing anxiety, the continuing production of cortisol. Your stomach is all churned up. Your emotions are all churned up by all of this stuff that's going on from, with the fuck Biden regime and all of that kind of stuff, right? All of these things. I'm not even going to get into the litany of them. I'm not going to add any more. You know what they are because you're living through them. But the cortisol and the stress hormones and everything are affecting you. We need to be cognizant of that fact that we are under a huge level of stress. So we are in crossfire hurricane. Now a hurricane is unlike a tornado. Hurricane is unlike other weather systems. This is heavy weather. Hurricane at sea is an extreme low pressure system, and you can't get away from it because you're on a mono-hulled boat, Unimoran, and it's very slow, and the weather system's going to overtake you, right? So heavy weather sailing requires that you understand what you're going to have to go through, that you're going to have to it's the duration, however long it lasts. You're going to have to go through it because you can't escape it. And we're at that point now. There are things you do under those circumstances. Sleep when you can, take care of your body, prevent yourself from being bashed back and forth. Now, we're not in physical boats, but you're going to be emotionally thrown from side to side by the kind of heavy weather that we're going to be going through. And you can make yourself feel better about your situation by getting your situation prepared for the heavy weather. You'll feel better by having a little stash of food. You'll feel better by having water, or whatever it is, right? Toilet paper, whatever is, the more critical elements within your particular situation. You should know in your gut, you should probably know by November how long the potential for disruption and so forth is likely to persist, because we'll see some major activity in September and October, and we should see appropriate responses, although those appropriate responses to this activity will be coming from inappropriate people that you would not have expected would be the responders to these. Nonetheless, the responses that will be coming out to in response to the events here, the personalities and everything over September and October, in spite of the fact that they're inappropriate to your thinking now, will make things better. It'll make your understanding of things better, and it will also make things better in a physical sense, in that energy and direction and effort will be applied, and shit will change. So we should know by November. Now, there's so much that's unpredictable, and that is because of the aspects of devolution, because there is war here, because there is war with the Chinese, and because there's war with the elitists, and then because there's war with the hidden government, and then there's war with the space alien bug that's controlling the hidden government on the other side of that. But because we're in war, we have to assume, just like with heavy weather, that we've got to make do with what we've got, so we need to get what we need, and then that we've got to take care of ourselves during this time of the pitching and rolling. Okay, that's the really hard part of this, is that you're never stable in a hurricane. You're constantly moving and so on. The Navy Navy is really cool. They do tons of studies about how to do shit on water. And one of them came out and said that within 24 hours of even a mild low pressure system, most people have lost 82% of their functionality in the ocean. That is to say that just trying to keep your balance and this kind of stuff after a day of that, and, because it's not usually like a cruise ship. Cruise ships are like a hotel just laid over on its side. Everything's flat, hardly ever moves, really. And it's a big deal when it does. I mean, everybody takes videos of everything happening when it does. But just 24 hours of that, and you're degraded in 82% of your functionality. Well, and part of your functionality is to keep yourself alive during the rest of it. So this represents a real level of risk. So you have to be aware that you're going to be degraded because of the rocking and rolling and pitching and yawing and stuff of your emotions. And that will degrade both your thinking and your capacities to watch out for yourself and others. So the Navy has this rule, right? So once you understand that, okay, I'm in a life-threatening situation, potentially, the heavy weather storm, and my capacity is degraded, including my thinking. Then you have to think in a particular way. That's why the Navy and all the other services train people to have basically body memories, where they have these particular routines that they go through. And so in these circumstances, the one thing you have to do first is, am I making the correct decision given the circumstances? So you don't second guess yourself. You come to a decision point. You reach a decision and you have that gut level reaction, okay, this is what I should do, I think. That's the point where you apply this extra critical thinking. Is this the correct decision? In other words, is my thinking so adversely affected by my body circumstances or other circumstances, you know, emotion and stress and so on, that I'm making an inappropriate decision to these circumstances. And so it basically means you rethink, you redo, you recheck. Now in the ocean, it's very necessary that you do this because every action has 35 times more likelihood of resulting in an accident. And that's because everything's constantly moving in a way that is unpredictable, mostly unpredictable. Not quite as bad here in what we're going to go through, but this whole idea of double checking your thinking about stuff is going to be real key. I'm trying to say this in different ways in different videos to get people to think about this because everyone reacts differently when they're instructed. Some people are visual learners, some people are, you know, get it from sound, others read it and so on, right? But we have to understand that we individually are part of this process, and our thinking that we're relying on could be affected by the circumstances that are also contributing to this process that we are in. So it's really a tricky time, okay? And we're going to see some weird stuff come out over the next few weeks, 6 weeks or so. I expect because of things relative to astronomy that the energies from space that we're in now will continue at least until February. They may be very striking on the southern hemisphere, so we may find that there's just like extreme violence coming out from Australia and no one can figure out what's going on. I mean, beyond the pressure of their situation at the moment. And it may be that a lot of the population is reacting to a really increased energetic load. Anyway, so that's about it for what the woo here. We've got a bunch of woo about to be unleashed on the normies. As the normies are starting to wake up, they're hearing about all of these things that's been hidden from them. And a lot of people are extremely upset that they've taken this jab and are trying to do things to rectify their body. The deep state is starting to become seriously aware of this, and we're seeing some responses. Because of the nature of the weakness of the response, I think that this is an indicator of the weakness of the deep state, at least here in the United States, which gives me hope, or gives me more confidence that my projection on timing is accurate. See, I'm double checking myself on all of this shit I'm doing all the time because my own brain is, hey, it's totally exposed. You know, those radiations are zapping right into that poor thing, right? But I got my fats and I'm, you know, bulking up and stuff. Oh, I got my tractor fixed too. So good news there. Turned out to be a very intrusive, very hard to find air leak in the fuel system, intruding into a closed fuel system. So it's running. It's falling to bits as I drive it, rust and everything, but it's running. Okay, guys, take care. It's a rough time. If you go out on the 18th for any of these protest, there's a thing. We'll have to go and protest. Now's the point. Now's the time. The war's busting out in the open, and all the normies are going to get active. They're going to want to do something. The energies from space are making us active. So people will do this shit anyway. So be aware that there's going to be infiltration. Be aware that there's going to be agent provocateurs. If you see the mainstream media, you should leave that area because the mainstream media only films to support the bugs narrative, and so there will be some bad shit going down there. Or then an alternative thing is, if you can't leave, then cluster right around the mainstream media. Prevent them from doing their job, and you won't see that. Maybe you won't see any kind of activity bust out, because the agent provocateur is there to cause the problem to be recorded. If it can't be recorded, you know, a lot of this stuff will just fizzle out. So if you just swarm around any mainstream media, you know, CNN, any of these guys with the big cameras and all this kind of shit, and not let them do their work, then you may be able to obstruct whatever was going to happen locally that would have been pimped out as the major theme for the, you know, your particular agent provocateur disruption of your particular protest in your country. It's getting really complicated because it's happening everywhere. Anyway, don't promote violence. Be resolute. We'll get through this. And eat good fats. You're going to need good fats. We're getting in some heavy woother.